Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Founded in 1907, Charles Edward Merrill was an American philanthropist, stockbroker, and co-founder with Edmund C. Lynch of Merrill Lynch and Company. The son of physician Dr. Charles Merrill and Octavia Wilson Merrill, was born in Green Cove Springs, Florida. His parents sent him to John B. Stetson University and gets his final year in high school to the Worcester Academy. After 2 years at Amherst College, Mary spent time at University of Michigan Law School, worked at Patuxent Plymouth Mills from 1907 to 1909, at Georgesburg and Company from 1909 to 1913, then established Charles E. Merrill and Company in 1914, later changing the name to Merrill Lynch and Company. Edmund Calvert Lynch was born in May 19, 1885 in Baltimore, Maryland to Richland Lynch and Jenny Vernon Smith Lynch. Lynch attended the Boys Latin School of Maryland and graduated from Johns Hopkins University in 1907. Lynch met Merrill while trying to find a place to live in New York City in 1907. Lynch joined Merrill's firm in 1914, 4 months after Merrill had founded the company. Rob Knapp was known as the father of Supernova, who ran Merrill Lynch Midwest District. In 1995, Knapp had a good year in revenue terms, but was concerned about future revenue because his district ranked last in client satisfaction among the 32 districts in the country. 18 months later, following implementation of a supernova, predecessor Knapp's office ranked fourth. Winthrop H. Smith was an employer of Merrill Lynch and Company. Born in 1893, was an American businessman and investment banker. Winthrop H. Smith is popularly known as Win Smith. Wins grew up in South Hadley, Massachusetts. He was educated at Phillips Academy and graduated from Amherst College in 1916. Upon graduation from Amherst, Smith joined Merrill Lynch and Company in 1916. Smith, who began as a junior runner and clerk at a Merrill, was groomed by founder Charles E. Merrill, who also was an Amherst alumni. Edward Allen Pierce was born in 1874 in Orrington, Maine, and attended Bowdoin College before dropping out. The college would confer an honorary Doctors of Laws degree on Pierce in 1956. He was an American businessman and stockbroker. Pierce was most notable for building the firm of A. Houseman and Company through the 1920s and 1930s and turning the firm into the largest brokerage in the US. Lately, he is the recognized one of the predecessor of Merrill Lynch and Company and Pierce and Fenner and Smith.
In the midst of the storm, it's only natural to wonder where the future will lead. To people who worry about the winds of change today, we'd like to remind you that no adversity lasts forever. And we'll be there with the strength and resources you can count on. Because at Merrill Lynch, we're bullish on the future.
The company was founded on January 6, 1914 when Charles E. Merrill opened his Charles E. Merrill and Company for business at 7 Wall Street in New York City. A few months later, Merrill's friend Edmund C. Lynch joined him, and in 1915 the name was officially changed to Merrill, Lynch and Company. At that time, the firm's names included a comma between Merrill and Lynch. In 1916, Winthrop Smith joined the firm. In its early history, Merrill Lynch and Company made several successful investments. In 1921, the company purchased Path Exchange, which later became the R.A. Co. Pictures. In 1926, the firm made its most significant financial investment at that time, purchasing a controlling interest in Safeway, transforming the small grocery store into the country's third largest grocery store chain by the early 1930s. Throughout the 1930s, E. A. Pierce remained the largest brokerage in the U.S. The firm, led by Edward Pierce, Edmund Lynch, and Winthrop Smith, would also prove one of the most innovative in the industry, introducing IBM machines into the business record keeping. Additionally, by 1938, E. A. Pierce would control the largest wire network with a private network and over 23,000 miles of telegraph wires. These wires were typically used to trade execution. Despite its strong position in the market, E. A. Pierce was struggling financially in the 1930s and was thinly capitalized. Following the death of Edmund Lynch in 1938, Winthrop Smith began discussions with Charles Merrill, who owned a minority interest in E. A. Pierce about possible merger of the two firms. On 1940, Merrill Lynch merged with Edward Pierce and Company and Cassatt and Company, a Philadelphia-based brokerage firm in which both Merrill Lynch and E. A. Pierce held an interest, and was briefly known as Merrill Lynch, E. A. Pierce and Cassatt. The company became the first on Wall Street to publish an annual fiscal report in 1941. Merrill Lynch rose to prominence on the strength of its brokerage network, 15,000 plus as of 2006, sometimes referred to as the "thundering herd," that allowed it to place securities and underwrote directly. In contrast, many establishment Wall Street firms Such Morgan Stanley relied on the groups of independent brokers for placement of the securities they underwrote. Until as late as 1970, it was known as the Catholic Firm of Wall Street. The firm went public in 1971 and became a multinational corporation with over 1.8 trillion US dollars in client assets, operating in more than 40 countries around the world. In 1977, the company introduced its cash management account or CMA, which enabled customers to sweep all their cash into a money market mutual fund and included check writing capabilities in a credit card. Fortune magazine called it the most important financial innovation in years. In 1978, it significantly bolstered its security underwriting business by acquiring Whitewell and Company, a small but prestigious old-line investment bank. Merrill Lynch was well known for its global private client services and its strong sales force. Afterwards, Merrill Lynch settled with Orange County, California, for a massive $4 million to settle accusations that it sold inappropriate and risky investments to former county treasurer Robert Citron. Citron lost $1.69 billion, which forced the county to file for bankruptcy in December 1994. The county sued a dozen or more securities companies, advisors, and accountants, but Merrill settled without admitting liability in June 1998. The county was able to recover about $600 million in total, including the $400 million from Merrill.
John Thane, the CEO of Merrill Lynch. Our pal, Aaron Burnett of CNBC, with a little enterprise reporting today that Mr. Thane paid out at least $3 billion in bonuses to his people and spent $1.2 million redesigning his office. A garbage can for just $1,400. Roman shades, $7,300. Fabric for the Roman shades, $11,000. Shades are not sufficient for Mr. Thane. He also had 4 pairs of curtains for $28,000. A commode with legs. That's really just a chest of drawers, not a toilet. $35,000. A light fixture for $19,000. 2 guest chairs for $43,000 each. An antique chair for $18,000. An antique credenza for $68,000 large. A mahogany pedestal table for $25,000. A very good bargain. What is described kind of mildly here as just table for $5,800. And lastly, an area rug for $87,000. The area had better be all of Merrill Lynch's 10281 zip code, and it better cover all the homeless people in the neighborhood, because though Mr. Thane's office redecorations took place early in the year last year, they were, in effect, part paid for by you. His company, Merrill Lynch, was taken over by Bank of America using at least $20 billion of taxpayer bailout money. Hey, you know what? We want it back, even though Mr. Thane has today been fired. That's ex-CEO John, why don't you go live in your $1,400 garbage can, Thane, formerly of Merrill Lynch, today's worst person in the world.
In November 2007, Merrill Lynch announced it would write down $8.4 billion in losses associated with the national housing crisis and remove E. Stanley O'Neill as its chief executive. O'Neill had earlier approached Wachovia Bank for a merger without prior board approval, but the talks ended after O'Neill's dismissal. Merrill Lynch named John Thane as their new CEO that month. In first days at work in December 2007, John Thane made changes in Merrill Lynch top management, announcing that he would bring in former NYSE colleagues such as Nelson Chai as CFO and Margaret Tutwiler as a head communications. Late that month, the firm announced it would sell its commercial finance business to General Electric and sell off major shares of its stocks to Temasek Holdings, a Singapore government investment group, in an effort to raise capital. The deal raised over $6 billion. In July 2008, Thane announced $4.9 billion fourth quarter losses for the company for defaults and bad investments in the ongoing mortgage crisis. In 1 year between July 2007 and July 2008, Merrill Lynch lost $19.2 billion or $52 million daily. The company's stock price had also declined significantly during that time. 2 weeks later, the company announced the sale of select hedge funds and securities in an effort to reduce their exposure to mortgage-related investments. Temasek Holding agreed to purchase the funds and increase its investments in the company by $3.4 billion. Andrew Cuomo, New York Attorney General, threatened to sue Merrill Lynch in August 2008 over their misinterpretation of the risk on mortgage-backed securities. A week earlier, Merrill Lynch had offered to buy back $12 billion in auction-rate debt and said they were surprised by the lawsuit. 3 days later, the company froze hiring and revealed that they had charged almost $30 billion in losses to their subsidiary in the United Kingdom, exempting them from taxes in that country. On August 22, 2008, CEO John Thane announced an agreement with the Massachusetts Secretary of State to buy back all the auction rate securities from customers with less than $100 million in deposit with the firm, beginning in October 2008, expanding in January 2009. On September 5, 2008, Goldman Sachs downgraded Merrill Lynch stock to conviction sell and warned of further losses from the company. Bloomberg reported in September 2008 that Merrill Lynch had lost $51.8 billion in mortgages-backed securities as part of the subprime mortgage crisis. Merrill Lynch, like many other banks, became heavily involved in the mortgage-based collaterals debt obligation, also known as CDO, market in the early 2000s. According to an article in Credit Magazine, Merrill's rise to be the leader of the CDO market began in 2003 when Christopher Ricciardi brought his CDO theme to Credit Suisse First Boston to Merrill. In 2005, Merrill took out advertisements in the back of Derivatives Week magazine, touting the fact that it's a global markets and investing group was the number one global underwriter of CDOs in 2004. To provide a ready supply of mortgages in the CDOs, Merrill purchased First Franklin Financial Corporation, one of the largest subprime lenders in the country, in December 2006. Businessweek would later describe how between 2006 and 2007, Merrill was lead underwriter on 136 CDOs worth $93 billion by the end of 2007. The value of these CDOs was collapsing, but Merrill held onto portion of them, creating billions of dollars in losses for the company. In mid-2008, Merrill sold a group of CDOs that had once been valued at $30.6 billion to Lone Star Funds for $1.7 billion in cash and a $5.1 billion loan. In April 2009, Bond Insurance Company or MBIA sued Merrill Lynch for fraud and five other violations. They were related to the credit default swap insurance contracts Merrill had bought to MBIA on four of Merrill's mortgage-based collateralized debt obligations. There were the ML series, CDOs, Broderick CDO2, High Ridge ABS CDO1, Broderick CDO3, and Newbury Street CDO. However, in 2010, Justice Bernard Frye disallowed all but one of the charges, the claim by MBA that Merrill had committed breach of contract by comprising the CDOs were worthy of an AAA rating when it alleges in reality they weren't. When the CDO lost value, MBIA would found owing Merrill a large amount of money. Merrill disputed MBIA's claims. Significant losses were attributed to the drop in value of its large and unhedged mortgage portfolio in the form of collateralized debt obligations. Trading partners' loss of confidence in Merrill Lynch's solvency and ability to refinance short-term debt ultimately led to its sale. During the week of September 8, 2008, Lehman Brothers came under severe liquidity pressures, with its survival in question. If Lehman Brothers failed, investors were afraid that the contagion could spread to the other surviving investment banks. Lehman Brothers filed bankruptcy on September 15, 2008, after the government officials could not find a merger partner for it. On Sunday, September 14, 2008, Bank of America announced it was in talks to purchase Merrill Lynch for $38.25 billion in stock. The Wall Street Journal reported later that day that Merrill Lynch was sold to Bank of America for 0.8595 shares of Bank of America common stocks for each Merrill Lynch common share, or about $50 billion or $29 per share. This price represented a 70.1% premium over the September 12 closing price of 38% premium over Merrill Lynch book value of $21 a share. But that also meant a discount of 61% from its September 2007 price. Congressional testimony by Bank of America CEO Kenneth Lewis, as well as internal emails released by the House Oversight Committee, indicate that Bank of America was threatened with the firings of the management and board of Bank of America, as well as damaging the relationship between the bank and federal regulations, if Bank of America did not go through with the acquisition of Merrill Lynch. In March 2009, it was reported that in 2008, Merrill Lynch received billions of dollars from its insurance arrangements with AIG, including $6.8 billion from funds provided by the United States taxpayers to bail out AIG.